For this one, I really wanted to play with using the hearts as a mask, similar to what I had done with the acrylic, but I wanted to do it with watercolor. So because I'm working on a white paper for this artwork, I wanted to use yellow cardstock to create my heart stencils so that you could see it. Otherwise, it would just vanish. So I'm using the hearts from my previous stencil video to create some yellow stencils and just cutting those out. I figured out that I could fit 3 vertically on this long paper that is a mixed media paper. Canson mixed media paper is one of my favorite ones to work with, especially when I'm not sure where an art project is going to go and how many different medias are going to end up on it in the end. So once I had all 3 hearts cut out, I lay them out on my paper and I grab my washi tape and I put a couple pieces of washi tape on each heart so that I can secure it to the paper but not risk damaging the paper when I take the hearts off. And now I grab my watercolor tray and go ahead and activate my paints with my travel spray bottle, just my go-to fast way to wet my paints. And then I decided to do the splattering with a toothbrush. So once my paints are wet, I go ahead and wet the brush, and then I create a nice little puddle of color, and then I run my thumb, over the bristles of the toothbrush to get different splatters onto the paper. You do get some darker splatters depending on how wet your toothbrush is, but I like that variation, and I knew I was going to go back into this over and over again with the different colors, so the splatter variation just was a nice, fun, accidental thing that happened along the way. Then I'm going into my yellow, but I wasn't really worried about washing my brush too much, so my yellow kind of became a yellow-orange, and just kind of I just discovered that my paper started bowing as it got more moisture on it from the splatters. So I grabbed some washi tape to secure it down a little bit. And then I went back to splattering now with some orange. So now I've got red, yellow, and orange, going for a very warm color scheme with this. And then back into the red again. I'm trying to create a unified splatter effect across the whole thing, but also still have some areas where the different colors are a little bit more dominant. That's kind of the rough goal happening here. I also wanted some more variation of value, so I also took some of my plummier purple and popped that on there too. Knowing it was risky to drop that into a yellow, orange, and yellow, but deciding it was worth the risk because it would look so beautiful with those colors when it could stand on its own. If you're someone who's concerned though about your colors bleeding together and making kind of a more neutral color that you're not really going for, you could always let it dry in between these steps just to ensure that they didn't puddle up and muddle the colors at all. I did have some larger splats that happened, so you saw me grabbing my rag there and just kind of drying those up. And then I wanted some larger splatters, so I went ahead and grabbed my paintbrush and loaded that up nice and juicy with color and tapped that against my finger to bring those larger splatter areas down, just to give me even more variation to the size of splatters. And this is how it looks wet before I let it dry and remove the hearts. Now it's dry, so I'm going to go ahead and take off those hearts. And then I had to decide what I wanted to do next. And I wanted to do something, but I didn't want to add any more color to it. So I decided to initially start by just tracing around the outside edges with the fine tip of my black Tombow marker, just so that those could have a subtle pop between the heart shape and the background, and to crispen it up a little bit because some of the splatters did give it a little bit of a soft edge even though it was masked in. And then I was feeling like I wanted to kind of maybe go the Zentangle route with this one. So I started off by using my ruler and just roughly mapping in some horizontal lines across all 3 hearts. And I wasn't too sure where it was going to go from here. I just knew this felt like the next right step. And then after that, I decided to grid it. So I went ahead and flipped my paper and started putting in vertical lines. Again, I didn't measure this. If you are someone who's a little bit more particular and needs that evenness and that precision, you could easily measure this out to get the same effect, but have it be a definite equal spacing between your vertical lines and between your horizontal lines. But I decided to just let it be a little bit more free-flowing. And then once I had my vertical lines, I decided I wanted to add some diagonal lines and do kind of a checkerboard idea. I didn't want to fill anything in solid black, but I did want to have some variation. So I alternated the different angles of my fine lines in the different darker squares of the checker pattern so that there's still some, kind of optical movement happening. So every other one is twisted. So it's either going from the top left down to the right, or it's going from the top right down to the left. And then all around it, it varies so that there's no two the same touching each other anywhere on the grid. And I just kept doing this throughout all 3 hearts. And then once I was done checkerboarding it, I decided to add kind of that faux doily edge around each of the hearts by putting little bumps around all the edges just to kind of add a softness to it since I had all of the harsh geometry going on. And I loved how this turned out. It created a wonderful balance of the black and white design with the splattered background. So if you like it too, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to find out more about my upcoming Valentine's Day videos, and I'll see you next time.